Perhaps if I may just maybe kick off a question, Lumpur. I think today is the occasion of commemorating and honoring the King of Thailand. May we invite you to say a little bit about this occasion and the importance of this leadership for a country?
Sure. Well, as you know, today is the birthday of King Vajiralongkorn Rama X, and traditionally the kings of Thailand are the patrons of the Sangha and the Buddhist community. And the king, like his father, Rama IX, was very well known for visiting monasteries all the time, regularly, throughout each year of his reign. Not just to perform ceremonies of, offering katinas and sanghadana, but also for receiving teachings. He's a dedicated meditator, and he would receive meditation instruction, go and learn meditation with different teachers, and receive guidance in how to be a good king and run the kingdom. And he brought all his children with him regularly. So the current king, Rama X, King Vajiralongkorn, he was brought up very familiar with monks and monasteries, and he learned to meditate at a young age. And so it's always been part of the culture in Thailand that the royal family supports the religion. There are a number of royal monasteries, and a royal monastery in Thailand means it's under the direct patronage of the royal family, and will always be supported, looked after by the royal family. You probably know Lumpur Opat is a very well-known teacher that has visited Singapore. He's also visited our monastery here. A few years ago, his monastery was made into a royal monastery, which is a great honour and a sign of how much hard work Lumpur Opat put into teaching the Sangha and laity at that monastery, and built it up into a very special place. So the current king, he visits many monasteries. A few years ago, he visited Ajahn Chah's monastery for the Katina, and that was his decision. He wanted to go there and offer robes to the Sangha. He's visited some of the other monasteries, forest monasteries, as well as city temples and monasteries all over Thailand. So he's very active Buddhist. He also meditates, the current king. He can sit very peacefully for an hour, and many of the monks who have taught him meditation say he has very good samadhi. So these are sort of backgrounds that sometimes people don't realise. They just see a king do a ceremony and they might not realise, he also has his private life, and he may be a very dedicated meditator as well. I remember a few years ago when Lumpur Anand was invited into the palace to teach the king meditation. They meditated for a few hours at about 11 p.m, midnight, so very late, and then also had a Dhamma discussion. And then the king went off, had a bit of a rest, and then at 4 a.m. he was up cooking food with volunteers and members of his staff, and they were taking that to hospitals because that was during the period of COVID, when a lot of people were very sick in Thailand, like other countries. So again, people often only see the one side of a king. He's actually has a whole different side to him, very humble, generous and supportive of his country, looks after his country with a great sense of responsibility. And that also includes the religion and looking after the Sangha. He has many, many old monks, sick monks under his care. So it's a great honour. Sometimes senior monks in Ajahn Chah's Sangha or in other Sanghas around Thailand when an older monk becomes ill, invalid, needs more intense hospital care, sometimes the king will take the monk on and the king will make an invitation to look after the monk's welfare, arrange doctors, medicines, surgery and so on. There's a monk I know, Lumpur Ha, which he's sometimes affectionately known as Lumpur Dinosaur. He lives in Galasin. He's called Lumpur Dinosaur because they discovered dinosaur bones in the forest where his monastery is. When he got ill last year, the king sent a helicopter with the Air Force to pick him up, fly him to the hospital in Bangkok, where the best equipment and doctors are in Bangkok. So the king arranged a helicopter just to go and pick up this old sick monk, bring him down for treatment. There's a whole range of activities to do with religion as well as the general welfare of the Thai society that the king is involved with. That is really following the teachings of the Buddha, who gave a lot of instruction to leaders of communities, whether it's politicians, kings, leaders in different aspects of society, and business owners, employers, and so on. And the Buddha actually gave many teachings how to lead well. So, supporting the king and following the king's lead in supporting the Sangha, it's still very much a part of Thai culture. I myself, about 8 years ago, received a title from the previous king of Thailand, the current king's father. For my services to Buddhism, to establishing monasteries in Australia, I guess. So that's another thing that kings do. They bestow titles on Sangha and laity for their services to the community. So it's his birthday today, and it's his 72nd birthday. So in the cycle, 12-year cycles of birthdays, the 72nd birthday, 6th cycle is considered auspicious, a really good one. So they've made a lot of effort in Thailand to celebrate the king's birthday this year in different ways. So one way is having a retreat like this. You may be aware earlier in the year, the Indian government brought over relics of the Buddha from the Delhi Museum and a few other chedis around India. They brought relics of the Buddha, Sariputta, Moggallana over to Bangkok, where they were put on display, and hundreds of thousands of people were able to go and pay respects to these relics, which are believed to be from the Buddha. And then they were taken around the country to Chiang Mai, to Ubon, where Ajahn Chah's monastery is, and to southern Thailand. And they reckon about 1 million people went to pay respects to these relics. That was all in honor of the king's birthday, came about because of his birthday. And there's many other events that just mark or acknowledge the king's birth year, and today his birthday, and this year his 72nd year. So that's a little bit of background on the king, current king of Thailand, King Vajiralongkorn.
Thank you, Lumpur. And we wish the king a happy birthday, a happy 72nd birthday. I think as lay people, we've also been benefiting from his patronage and the support of the Forest Sangha, and particularly for the Ajahn Chah lineage. Many of our teachers have been bestowed the titles, plus also the monasteries having to support. So indirectly, as lay people, we're also indebted to the leadership of Thailand. So we wish him a happy birthday. Are there any other questions from the floor?
Don't be shy.
Perhaps the next question will be Lumpur. So how should one honor one's life, just like what it is now? If we're celebrating our birthday, how should we honor our life or the life of our loved ones on their birthday?
On the birthday? Oh. Generally in Buddhism, on birthdays, we encourage people to bring up the sense of gratitude, appreciation. So, on your birthday, it's a day to it's a day to remember those people who have helped. Usually parents. It's a day, if your birthday, that's the day you remember your mum who gave birth to you, remember your dad, remember all the good that they've done for you through your life. Normally we live with our parents, they bring us up. So it's a good day to say thank you in one way or another. How you say thank you varies. Like nowadays everyone's very kind of into it's a birthday, so you have birthday dinners and birthday parties and that kind of more sensual thing. But in Buddhism, we might decide to do some good, make some merit for our loved ones and for ourselves on a birthday. So not only remembering with gratitude all those people who have helped us, family members, friends, teachers, and so on, but we make a determination on my birthday, I will keep the 5 precepts out of gratitude for my parents, my teachers, the people who have helped me, or I might keep the 8 precepts even. Or I might do some meditation because it's my birthday. I'm going to meditate extra long. Normally I meditate for 20 minutes. Today I'm going to meditate for an hour if it's my birthday. Or we might do acts of dana. So it's your birthday, we'll go to the temple and make an offering of sangha dana or food because it's your birthday. Or maybe go out into the countryside and release a cow into freedom, buy one from the slaughterhouse before it's killed and go and release it, or buy some live fish and release the fish, or go and help somebody who needs help. So go and visit someone who's sick, or go and assist somebody who's aging or needs some physical help in some way. Rather than thinking of just how to enjoy sensually your birthday with food and drink or whatever people do, see what you can give back to those who have helped or just to society in general. So birthdays are a good day to practice dana, good day to keep precepts, good day to meditate and listen to Dhamma. So many teachers on their birthday in Thailand, many of the forest monks on their birthday, everyone comes to the monastery and they do a meditation retreat. Ajahn Chah's birthday, sometimes we would meditate all night long as an offering to the teacher on his birthday. So it's good to introduce the Dhamma into these occasions in some way or other, rather than it being a more materialistic thing or just fun. You understand why people just want a bit of fun, but maybe use it as an excuse to do more dana, keep precepts, meditate, listen to Dhamma, and so on.
We have a question from the floor. If I may just invite everybody, if it's convenient and if you could turn on your camera so that Longpo could see you, especially if you're asking a question. Fong Lam, could you? Yes, please go ahead.
Yeah. Thank you, Ajahn, for the wonderful and very helpful retreat. Talking about birthdays, recently my English and Chinese birthday coincided, which is a very rare thing, and it was on Upasata Day. So I decided to make an aspiration that it's a very long aspiration, but in short, I asked that I by the power of the Buddha, Dhamma, and Sangha, that I will stay on the path and never veer off the path. After I made the aspiration, I asked myself, how do I know when I am veering off the path? What are the signs of that, the danger signs that because living a lay life is so easy to veer off. So perhaps Ajahn can give some guidance. And also I tried to step up my meditation, my personal practice, but I encounter a lot of brain fog. Like when I look at my mind, it's so dense I cannot penetrate it. It's like solid. So hopefully Ajahn could help. Thank you, Ajahn.
Yeah, I think that's a very good question. Some of what I was saying this morning was directed to that kind of question. We need to review our life, what we're doing, how we're spending our time, and then sometimes in more detail how we're practicing the Dhamma. Because you're right, sometimes we veer away from the Dhamma. Perhaps one telltale sign that you're moving away from the Dhamma is just the stress level in your mind. If we're not putting in the wholesome inputs into our life, we're not practicing generosity, kindness, generosity, we're not keeping precepts, we're not listening to Dhamma or respecting the Dhamma, we're not spending any time meditating, then of course you'll probably find over time, maybe periods of weeks, months, that your mind starts to go downhill. You experience more stress, more worries, more agitation, maybe you lose your temper more easily, feel more prey to different kinds of mental suffering. That's usually a sign that your practice is not going so well and you're not following the path so well. Ajahn Chah used to say your mind is like water, so if you don't keep practicing looking after your mind, just like water, your mind will go downhill. Water always flows downhill to the lowest point, and your mind is like that. If you don't put effort into practicing the Dhamma on all these levels, generosity, morality, meditation, your mind tends to go downhill. It becomes darker. Some people are more visual, so you kind of notice, this person, they're not meditating, they don't listen to the Dhamma, they don't do much, practice much generosity, so their mind becomes kind of darker, maybe similar to what you're saying, the brain fog can get thicker and we lose track of what is skillful, wholesome in our thinking and our actions, and then we can do more unskillful things. A lot of people are practicing on a fairly superficial level. They say, I'm Buddhist. But then they're maybe not looking so carefully at what they actually do in terms of their Buddhist practice. So, some people say, I'm Buddhist, but they spend more time in the casino than they do in the temple. Or some people say, I'm Buddhist, and they're still drinking a lot, or killing animals, or, chasing after other people's husbands or wives or whatever. You have to look at your actions and be honest. So a good way to kind of check your practice is do a retreat, whether it's an online retreat or in a physical retreat. You go into a place, a temple or a retreat center, monastery. If you do that, you get like a reminder of where you're at. And some of your coarser kinds of behavior, where you've been straying from the path, may be revealed by going on a retreat. Another important factor is Kalyana Mitta, the kind of people you associate with. So if you spend some time with fellow Dhamma practitioners, you go to monasteries, you engage in kind kind of fairly wholesome activities, either in monasteries or in groups of people, with groups of people. This will also help you. You know, they have the joke, you know, the big temple and the little temple. The big temple is the casino, the bar. If you spend more time in the casino, the bar, than you do in the little temple, which is a place like this, then you know you'll get the results of that is that your mind will tend to become coarser, darker, less happy. And that's what defilements do to us when we're not making any effort to counter the sort of mental defilements. Then they run riot. They take over our mind and they bring us more stress, more suffering. So you have to find skillful ways to keep on the path. So I'd say a good skillful way is commit to doing some meditation every day, even if you've only got 5 or 10 minutes, better than nothing. Do some regular meditation practice, because then you're checking in with yourself. Where are you at? You know, what level is your mind at? What are you thinking about every day? Are you becoming more stressed or less? Listening to Dhamma as well. You may not be able to listen to Dhamma every day, but maybe at least once a week, listen to some Dhamma teachings or read Dhamma teachings. And people often have plenty of opportunity. Nowadays it's all on the web, podcasts, YouTube and so on. Maybe you can listen to Dhamma while you travel to work, or while you do some task that doesn't require a lot of concentration or doesn't require you to speak to anyone. You can listen to Dhamma, because now you can have, you know, AirPods and headphones, and you've got your mobile phone which may be able to play Dhamma to you. So listening to Dhamma regularly will help. And that will show you whether you have much respect for the Dhamma, where you value the Dhamma. Because if you're saying, oh, I can't be bothered listening to Dhamma, it's boring, or your mind is kind of resistant, it's probably a sign that you're losing your way, you're not that interested. And then these more negative states of mind, more selfish states of mind, more anger, more jealousy, worries, agitation will come in. The power of listening to Dhamma and the good effect of listening to Dhamma is, you know, it's amazing. It can help someone out of an illness when people are stuck in bed and fretting, anxious, unhappy because of their illness. Maybe a friend comes along, plays the Dhamma to them, or arranges for them to hear Dhamma, and they can perk up very quickly. It can be very useful. So regular meditation, listening to Dhamma, associating with fellow Dhamma practitioners, people who will encourage you to do good, practice more generosity, be patient with the difficulties of life, remind you to respect the Buddha Dhamma Sangha. Kalyana Mitta, good friends, can also be a support over time, because it is very easy to kind of drift away from the Dhamma.
Thank you, Lumpur. There are a couple of questions that were entered into the Google form. If I may read them out to you, Lumpur. The first one was in Thai, but I've translated it. And so it reads like that, Lumpur. Namaskar, Lumpur. We observe the 8 precepts. Is it wrong for a family member to accidentally hug us, breaking the 3rd precept?
Say that again, for a family member to what?
To hug us.
No, it's not. It's okay. I give permission for that. As long as it's done with goodwill and for no other hidden motive. You can't hug monks. Unfortunately, we don't hug. But if somebody's keeping the 8 precepts and it's a family member, you know, a child or someone, then it should be all right. But you know, the main thing is you're celibate, so it's probably not very wise to hug your partner when you're keeping the 8 precepts. You know, you need to manage your life. Say you're keeping the 8 precepts. Well, you should be able to talk to your partner and even your other family members and say, oh, for the next 3 days or 7 days or whatever, I'll be keeping the 8 precepts. So I'll hug you before I undertake the 8 precepts, and I'll hug you again after, but during, I won't hug. You can always discuss it, make it clear. But if something comes up out of the blue, like your granny comes to visit you while you're keeping 8 precepts, it should be all right to hug. Just, as an act of kindness, it should be all right. But particularly, men and women have to be a bit careful, because when you're on the 8 precepts, you're celibate. So it's quite possible the restraint actually makes you more sensitive to things like hugging, and sexual desire can be stimulated because you're cutting it off. So just be a bit careful between members of the opposite sex. It's probably best not to hug, not to touch while you're keeping 8 precepts. Shouldn't be sleeping in the same room as the opposite sex. You learn this sort of thing in a monastery. If you stay in a monastery or on a retreat center, usually you separate the genders for this reason, because sometimes hugging or touching or being too close to the opposite sex, it can unwittingly trigger sexual desire. So you want to minimize that, minimize doubt, guilt, confusion, and so on. So if you can, you arrange it so you don't have to hug anyone. That's best of all. But if, as I said, if your granny comes to visit, maybe sometimes you have to make an exception.
Thank you, Luang Por. So to the Thai friend who has entered this question, I hope we have interpreted your question suitably. If you'd like to expand on it, please feel free to type in your question again. The second question, Luang Por. Hi, Ajahn. May I ask, how do I overcome the fear of illnesses?
I guess there's different levels. One is you have to accept that this human body is fragile, so it can get ill. We live in, it's one of the aspects of human life, living in the world. We say the world is full of dukkha, and one of the dukkhas is there's germs, there's bacteria, there's viruses, there's transmittable diseases. Is one thing we have to deal with, and everyone is exposed to that. And then, even without receiving an illness from another person, we can make ourselves ill just through imbalances in our lifestyle, lack of exercise, wrong types of food, lack of sleep. All kinds of things we do without realizing can promote illness as well. But then even if with all the best intention and the best practices in the world, just getting older, a human body getting older is prone to get ill. Like here at the moment, it's cold, it's the winter. Cold weather often makes us feel ill. Some people get ill in the heat as well. You get all kinds of heat stroke and heat-related illnesses. So that's the nature of the world and the nature of a human body. It's prone to get ill sometimes. So I would reflect on that. The Buddha said, reflect on it every day, that I am of the nature to get sick, to get ill. I haven't gone beyond that. Because you'll notice one of the things that happens is when you get ill, you tend to reject it. You say, I don't want this, I don't want to be ill, I don't want this pain, this discomfort, I don't want this problem. If it's serious, maybe you're afraid of dying as well. And we kind of have an assumption that I shouldn't be ill. It's not fair. You hear that? It's not fair. Now I'm ill. This is not fair. It's not right. Sometimes we blame people who say I'm ill because the doctor didn't fix me up. Or if you catch something, you say, who did I get it from? Who gave it to me? Blame them. We're unhappy being ill, which is a sign that our mind hasn't accepted the fact that bodies are prone to illness, they're impermanent, ultimately they're not self. you can't make your body impervious to illness. Some people do that, don't they? They're so concerned about germs, nutrition. They try to have the perfect diet, all the supplements. They're really clean and really careful around germs, and so occasionally even to an extreme point. Nowadays there's a modern illness where little kids are brought up in a very germ-free environment. Maybe their parents are very concerned they won't catch any illnesses, to the point where their gut, their intestine doesn't function well enough. Because actually part of the way the human body works is we actually have to accept that we'll encounter some germs, bacteria, viruses, and that makes our immune system work better. But then if you protect yourself too much, almost to the point you're so clean or so pure, or you're exposed to so few bacteria, viruses, that when you do meet something, it can overwhelm you because your immune system is very weak, or inexperienced immune system, as it were. Or some kids, they can't digest food properly because the bacteria in their gut hasn't developed. And then they have to have various treatments, one of which includes transplanting feces and material from someone else's intestine into theirs to get the bacteria digesting food and coping with some of the germs and things, which sounds very strange. You know, this is a very complex issue, so I am being very I'm simplifying it here, but you get the idea. Sometimes we're over-concerned, over-attached to avoiding germs, avoiding illnesses and so on. Sometimes we have to accept, getting a bit of illness sometimes is maybe going to help us in the long term as well. But either way, just accept it's one thing that happens to us. Get it in your thinking so that when it happens, you can cope with it better. You take the medicine, you go through the treatment for your illness if you get it, but mentally you're still in a state of normality. You can accept the impermanence of the body. Sometimes there's pain, sometimes discomfort. Illness is not convenient. You can accept it if you've opened your mind up to that possibility. So I would think in this way, it's a reflection, isn't it? This body is impermanent. It is subject to illness. Ultimately, it's not mine to control. You can't control your body and keep it young, keep it healthy all the time. That's impossible. So making sure your mind understands that. And so reflect on it often. This will help. It's the best you can do, really. One other thing is the Dhamma. Practicing the Dhamma has a very good effect on the body. It's not a guarantee that you'll never get ill, or that if you are ill that you'll be cured, but what I find is that people who practice the Dhamma, they develop a good attitude, kindness and compassion for others, for themselves, more tolerance, more patience, and they reflect on impermanence, unsatisfactoriness, and the ownerless nature of phenomena, physical, mental phenomena, what we call vipassana meditation. People who do that tend to cope well with illness, and often their illness doesn't bother them too much. They've got a good state of mind. We say they've got merit. People with merit, often their illness doesn't last very long, or it doesn't seem to bother them very much. Maybe a serious illness seems to be less serious because of their good state of mind. This seems to be the case from what I've observed. And sometimes we talk about Dhamma Osat, like the medicine of the Dhamma. You're ill, when you go and meditate, maybe your illness improves or disappears. Certainly minor illness can improve and disappear. When you meditate on something, it can disappear from your body quicker. And people also use faith healing, spiritual healing. Well, the power of samadhi has a healing quality on the body. So as I say, you maybe can't perform miracles, get rid of everything, but it will certainly help boost your immune system, boost your body's ability to cope with illness, disease, and so on. But in the end, we're all going to get old, we're all going to die. So I would adjust your thinking to cope with that, to accept that. It's just truth, isn't it? It's just the way it is. And maybe by letting go of your fears, your worries, you actually improve your state of mind, improve your body. Doctors often say, when they have to diagnose cancer and tell someone that they've got cancer, from what they can see, often the fear and worry about the cancer is as bad or worse than the actual cancer itself. Because fear is a very powerful emotion, isn't it? If you're living with fear, anxiety, it brings you down physically as well as mentally. You become very depressed, sad, on edge. Maybe various hormones and chemicals come out because of your fear that actually are harmful to your body. So try to relax and accept the impermanence of things. It's not sure. Maybe they give you the news that you're getting ill, and then there's a monk we know, Binando. Perhaps I shouldn't be talking about his state of health, but he was diagnosed with cancer recently, and then he thought it was really bad, and then the doctor said, well, it's not as bad as you thought. It can go back and forth, can't it? If your mind attaches too much, you'll think the worst before the worst has happened, perhaps. So you can always bring up another reflection. So say they give you the news you've got some problem. You say, okay, I've got this problem, but maybe it's not as bad as I think. Maybe it won't be as bad as they say. You never know. It's impermanent. So keep the mind open to the uncertainty of conditions. It may not be as bad as you think.
Thank you, Paul. So there's another question from someone here in this room. It reads, Dear Lompo, thank you for your teachings, even when you are coughing and not well. May you get well soon. We are taught not to be attached to our body. The question is, when one dies, if the body is cremated and ashes spread to the ocean or wherever, then the children have nowhere to go to remember their parents. What should one do in this case? Thank you, Lompo.
Oh, well, get a picture of your parents and put it on the wall. If you really love your parents, they should be in your heart all the time. It only takes a second to think of your mum, your dad, whoever you love, your teacher, the Buddha. You don't necessarily need a place. I'm not saying it's wrong to have a place. If that's what suits you and helps you, well, make a place. So you can make a shrine of sorts to your parents in your home, your garden, or in a temple if you want. You have that choice. Whether you actually keep the ashes there or not is another thing. You may just have a picture or a note, some kind of script, text that reminds you of your parents, their names, who they were, when they lived, and so on. That's up to you. You've got your choices here. But the truth is, this physical body, once the mind has left it, the physical form, that's no longer your mum or your dad. Once they've died, the physical form goes back to the elements, doesn't it? So if we cremate your mum, your dad, it just becomes ashes, and we scatter as a reflection. That tradition has come about as a reflection on impermanence, to help you see, oh, this body is impermanent. Ultimately, it's not mine. I don't own it. And you scatter it back into the sea or the mountain or wherever, or you bury the body or the ashes. It's a reflection on impermanence and on not self. It's helping you to let go. So of course, at first, that's a bit confronting. But if you find it helpful, you can still have various things to remind you of your parents and the goodness of the parents. As I said, pictures, little plaques, You can plant a tree, can't you? You can plant a tree and that reminds you of your mum or your dad. Every time you water the tree or see the tree. There's a number of things you can do, or you could do an act of dana. You know, what many Buddhists do, they build a kuti for monks in the name of their parents. They may actually put a plaque on the kuti or photo or put ashes there, or they just do it and they know this was done in the name of my parents, and they can always remember I built this building or contributed to a building project or some other charity project for my parents. So there's many, many ways you can remember your parents. But if you're really, particularly if you meditate and you're interested in training your heart, just keep them in your heart and you think of them every day with gratitude. You can bow to your parents every day. You know, when we bow to the Buddha, the Dhamma, the Sangha. You might bow to a teacher, like bow to Ajahn Chah, and you can bow to your parents. They brought you into the world, they brought you up, they've done many good things for you, so you, out of gratitude, you can bow to them every day if you wish. So there's actually so many ways you can remember a departed loved one. You have that choice. But remember, the physical body, that's no longer your parent once they've died. So if you leave the body, it will just, it will rot, it will go back into the earth. You cremate it, or you scatter the ashes. The parent is really the goodness of their life, what they've done. That's what you have to remember. And you can remember that in many, many different ways.
Sadhu Lumpur. The next question. Hello, Ajahn. I realize that I do not have much time to learn the Dhamma, as I have many duties and tasks to complete. As much as I have reduced time for other tasks, I still do not have much time to learn the Dhamma. What should I do? Thank you, Lumpur.
Well, sometimes they say you only need to know one word, Buddho, or one thing, the breath going in, breath going out. Learn that much, and you can learn all the Dhamma from this one word or this one thing, the breath. You don't need to read all the suttas. If you've got a little bit of time to hear Dhamma when you can, that's good. Learn a bit of some of the teachings, but I would put a lot of effort into practice. Spend some time meditating on the breath every day. Make your mindfulness firm. Bring up the skill of watching the breath go in, breath go out. And if you can make your mind calm doing that, let go of all the worries, the distractions, you're going to learn many, many new things, good things in your life. So number one priority, look after the heart, the mind. Keep it free from stress. Or if you are stressed, work out how to let go of that stress. Practice mindfulness, do that a lot. Even if you don't know the suttas, you don't know the teachings of the Buddha, that doesn't matter. Just look after your mind every day. That's a good starting point.
Thank you, Lumpur. Please keep your questions coming in. One more question here. Lumpur? So this person is asking, Lumpur, sometimes during meditation, there are other beings that enter the body. These are manifested through strange verbal articulations, body and facial movements, such as jerking. But my health record is clear from any neurological illnesses. Is there any advice on how one can practice with these and prevent beings from entering the body in the future?
Beings, meaning other beings. Is that what they mean?
Well, this person didn't describe. This person
Be
says,
mindful. The Buddha said if you're ever worried that you're being, there's ghosts around or something around, be mindful of your body. So go to the breath or any other aspect of the body, contemplate that and stay mindful of the body. No other beings will enter your consciousness or bother you as long as you're mindful. So all monks learn this. You can use Buddha as well. You can recite something just to keep your mindfulness. Then no other beings are going to enter you. I guess the person means like possession, that kind of thing. So if you ever thought there was some ghost around trying to possess you, just recite Buddha, 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 you'll be fine. Or go to the breath, breathe in, breathe out, breathe in, breathe out. Don't entertain this being if you think there's one there. They can't harm you, they can't do anything to you. It's only your imagination and then your desire, I guess, to want to experience another being. That may lead to some strange experience. If you're mindful, nothing will happen to you. But as we practice, it's normal, or not normal, but it's not uncommon for, especially in the beginning of meditation, sometimes you have movements, your mind and body are settling down. Sometimes it's just the nervous system, sometimes it's just air, gas. There's different things that may happen. You may have jerky movements in your arm or your leg or something, but it doesn't last very long. It's not very extreme. It may be just a few brief experiences like that, and then it should pass. As you practice mindfulness, particularly if you do mindfulness of breathing, you start to calm down, relax. You feel good, and you won't have these experiences of jerking or strange movements in the body for very long.
I thought that response suitable to the person who's asking the question. Are there any more questions from the floor? We have another 13 minutes to go to the hour, so we can take another few more questions. Anyone want to raise a hand? Okay. Anyone else? From Lam again? From Lam? Yes. Please ask your question.
Okay, Ajahn, since nobody is asking, so I thought I make use of the time to ask another question. I hope you don't mind. I grew up in the family as a child where there's a lot of anger in the family, a lot of conflict, a lot of fighting, and parents have no time for the kids for anything else. So whenever they open their mouth, it's always some scolding, some complaining, some criticism. So as an adult, I feel that that could have left a mark on me. Anger is a very natural reaction. So how do I deal with this kind of chronic, maybe, response? I have a lot of anger towards people who are closest to me. With people outside, I do a lot of social work. Like for example, I am on a suicide hotline. I'm on a suicide hotline to help people, and I actually am attached to a monastery in New Zealand, a Vimutti monastery. So, but this is the part of my life that I have tremendous difficulty dealing with. Hope Long Paul can give some teachings on this. Thank you, Long Paul.
It sounds like you've already got some good perspective on your own life. It's a very common story. Many people are brought up in angry households. Sometimes it's economic struggles, isn't it? Mum and dad have to go out to work, long hours, come home tired. Everybody's irritated, tired, so we take it out on each other. It depends on the situation. But now you're older and you practice the Dhamma, you've got some perspective, you've got more understanding, more compassion. So one thing you've got to deal with, I guess, from what you say, is the memories of how it was before. And then when these memories come up, they may prompt or trigger you to act in similar ways. So you have to make a decision, a choice, and say, no, I'm not going to act like that. I'm not going to get angry, even when I feel I've been mistreated in the past and the memories come up. And they may trigger feelings, and you may feel, you were treated badly, unfairly. Try not to carry it around or dwell on this. Just accept whatever's happened has happened. It might not have been good, but it's happened, it's over. I assume now you're not living in that same situation. You're no longer surrounded by angry parents and siblings. So now your situation is different. You can look back and say, well, this thing happened, this problem happened during my youth, but I'm not going to let it affect me now. I'll acknowledge it, accept it, but with compassion, I'll let it go, and I go in a new direction, one of non-anger. And of course, if you're in a family, your own family now, or with your own groups of friends, you can see the suffering that comes when people are angry with each other constantly. It builds up a lot of tension, stress, unhappiness. You can see that, hopefully, so then you can be determined not to repeat the same thing yourself in your current situation. So you learn your lesson, and sometimes the lesson is hard because you can't wipe your memory clean, so the memories will keep coming up. But it's how you respond to them that's the important thing. To have enough mindfulness not to go into more anger and cling to the angry thoughts and the angry emotions over and over again. You have to be mindful enough to say, let it go, move on, and focus on something better. So cultivate more constant compassion, kindness, change, having seen the harm of anger, and then you can change for the better. And that's the way we get beyond it. The Buddha said anger is overcome by non-anger. That process, that may take time, so you have to be very patient with yourself. But this is something that you have to learn, basically. And it sounds like you're also doing a good thing if you're helping other people in society who are suffering on a suicide hotline or any other kind of dana, compassion in practice. Well, this will also help because you can understand where they're coming from. If they have their own suffering, maybe you can empathize, you can understand, and you can tell them from your own experience, maybe how you've dealt with things, and that can be meaningful for them, perhaps. But you have to let go of the past. The past is the past. And if it's not a current situation, well, be happy that you don't have to live in that angry situation anymore. That's a good thing. And try not to recreate it or take any anger that does come up in your mind. Try not to take it out on anyone around you nowadays, because you know what that's like. And you don't want to make things worse for other people around you. There's a lot of angry people in the world, unfortunately. So we have to learn how to be patient and not to add to their anger, not to provoke people, not to engage with our own anger. So we have to learn quite often how to be very patient, tolerant, and keep our own minds separate from someone else's anger. Don't take ownership of it. Even memories of other people being angry with us, try not to take ownership of their anger, meaning bring it into the heart, hold on to it, think about it all the time. You have to learn how to let go, move on.
Thank you, Lampo. The next question. Could Lampo please explain what is the meaning by turning inward at different levels? Turning inward.
well, that's largely what you're doing in meditation. We spend most of our time letting our mind go out to the world, seeing, hearing, tasting, touching. And of course, that's useful for gaining information, interacting with the world, earning a living, doing social things. Of course, it has a role. But what we miss and don't do enough of is turning our attention inwards to ourselves. And that's what you're doing in meditation. If you sit there, quiet, sit there, close your eyes, follow the breath, or recite a word like Buddha, or any of the other meditation techniques, you're turning your attention inwards, aren't you? You're temporarily setting aside your concern, your interest in the rest of the world during meditation. Now you're turning attention inwards. So it's coming from, really, it's an act of compassion for yourself, because it's only by seeing yourself, knowing yourself, that you can improve and change and understand where your stress really comes from. So this practice of going inwards is very important. You don't have to do it all the time, because sometimes we have to communicate and go outwards, of course, but we should do it at least once a day, maybe more. Learn to get in the habit of turning to watch our own mind. Get to know your own thoughts, your own feelings and emotions. Or like the last question, get to know memories and how they're affecting you. So if you never look, well, you'll miss it, won't you? Maybe there's just some memory of something and you've been carrying around a habitual reaction to that memory. You don't even realize. So you might, sometimes, you get angry in a situation. And it's actually been prompted by a number of different factors in your life, but you don't see. You just say, oh, I'm angry with this guy. Well, actually, maybe there's anger coming from other things you're carrying around. You're the view, I'm somebody, I deserve better, I've had a bad past, this happened, that happened. Our anger could be prompted by a whole range of things that we haven't seen. That's not the only part of meditation, but generally our awareness is not so sharp, is it? We miss things about ourselves, the way we think, the way we make choices and decisions. So if we take a bit of time to get to know ourselves better, turn attention inwards. Like the Buddha said, meditation is a bit like holding up a mirror to the mind. Normally we spend a lot of time with the mirror for the body, doing our hair, our clothes, making our face look good. If you're honest, and you say, in your life, how much time have you spent in front of a mirror making yourself look good? It's embarrassing, isn't it? We're talking about hours and hours and days, if we're honest. It's one of the nice things about being a monk. You don't need a mirror. One hairstyle, one kind of clothing, it doesn't matter. If you look ugly and terrible, it's okay. You're free. But normal people spend a lot of time on appearance and style and all this. But we don't spend much time with a mirror to our mind. So we're not looking at the kind of thoughts we're having. Are they beautiful or ugly? Are they good or bad? That's just as important or even more important than looking in the physical mirror at our appearance. We need to look at our minds more. So he said when you practice mindfulness, it's like holding up a mirror to your mind. And you're seeing, oh, why am I thinking like this? Why do I hate this guy so much? I'm always thinking these negative thoughts, hating this guy, or why am I so afraid of this problem, this thing? Why am I so infatuated with this thing, this person or this object? Why do I spend so much time thinking about, often we don't even know what we're thinking very much. We're not very clear. When you start practicing mindfulness, you do some sitting or walking meditation, you turn your attention inwards. Now it's like you've got the mirror out, the mirror to your mind. And you can see some of the thoughts. You may have a really ugly thought you never even noticed before. When it's a physical mirror, you notice, oh, you got a pimple. You say, oh, where did this pimple come from? It's the end of the world. You got to do the same with your mind. You say, oh, where does this very dark thought I've been holding on to come from? I better do something about this. with the mirror of the mind, then you can start improving your mind. But it takes some effort, time, and you need to turn your attention inwards. So that's why we do it.
Thank you, Luang Por. The next question might be similar to the previous one. The question is, what is the pure mind? Is it just empty?
Well, it's empty of certain things. It's empty of impurities. Therefore, it's called the pure mind. So, one way of describing the practice in Buddhism is you're clearing away the impurities to get back to the pure mind. Because the pure mind might be, you might say, the natural mind, just this quality of knowing. We know things. We know through our senses, we see, hear, taste, smell, touch, and we can know with the mind itself. You can think, you can feel, you have emotions, but the trouble is, a lot of the time, the mind is affected by impurities, thoughts rooted in greed, anger, delusion. We create attachments, we suffer. What does attachment do? It makes you suffer. You attach to a person and then they don't do what you want, you suffer. Or that person separates from you, you suffer. You attach to a possession, a thing, something happens to that, you suffer. Or the worry about it makes you suffer. We don't see all this going on. These are the impurities of the mind. But when you practice mindfulness and contemplate to see through them, to see they're impermanent, ultimately there's no self there, you may get back to what we call the natural mind, the pure mind. You understand, oh, this is where you can be peaceful, you can be happy, truly happy, by letting go of attachment to the sense of self. People often equate emptiness or the pure mind, they think it's a mind that's blank. It's not an attractive idea. They can't see that it would be happiness. But actually, if your mind is free from greed, anger, delusion, from attachment, it's going to be very still, quiet, peaceful, blissful. It's a pleasant experience. But it's not that you're blank and turned off. Like in Buddhism, we say somebody who's realized the pure mind, or we say the unconditioned mind, they're called an arahant. We say they're experiencing the highest happiness. Why is that? It's because they don't manufacture any stress anymore out of their experience. But they still know things, they still see and hear, taste, smell, touch, they can still think, but they don't create suffering out of all those experiences. Even when they have an unpleasant experience come their way, which could happen. Say like the Buddha, we know the Buddha, sometimes people would come along, see the Buddha and scold him and say, oh, you're wrong, you're teaching the wrong stuff, you're deluded, you're a bad monk, you're this, you're that. Even the Buddha got people being rude or insulting to him or would argue with him. But he didn't react with attachment and self. He knew what was being said, but he was still peaceful because he's with the pure mind or the natural mind all the time. So he didn't create suffering out of his experience anymore. The Buddha still had a body. He could still feel pains in his legs, aches and pains. He could still get ill, could still feel tired, but he didn't create any suffering out of these feelings. That's the important thing. The pure mind or the empty mind doesn't create suffering out of anything. It just is what it is. So it's peaceful. Trouble is, you've got to experience it before you can really understand. We can't really describe it very well. Words don't do a good job. So if you want to know more about it, do some meditation and you might find out about it.
Thank you, Luang Por. Luang Por, we are at the hour, 5 minutes past 1 o'clock. We have 3 more questions on the chat box. Do you wish to continue the questions, or do we take a break now and come back at past?
We can try and finish them. I'll try and briefly give an answer to all of them.
Okay, thank you, Luang Por. So we'll finish these last 3 questions and we'll take a break.
Yep.
The next question is, Dear Luang Por, I have recently read that the Buddha mentioned if he did not ordain women during his time, his teaching would last longer. Is this true? If so, why is this so?
I wasn't there, so I can't absolutely say it was true. It's hard to answer this question briefly, I think. You have to go to the text wherever the Buddha said that. Were any reasons given for him saying that? Or perhaps he was being very smart and not saying much at all. Obviously nowadays society is very different from in the time of the Buddha. But I've heard this said before as well, but I can't verify that the Buddha did actually say that. So I can't really say why he would have said it. But in the time of the Buddha, the role of women in society was very controlled, more than it is now. You know, society was a bit different than it is now. So perhaps there were reasons that women ordaining would bring up issues in the society of that time in India. I think the important thing to see is that the Buddha never said women couldn't get enlightened or couldn't practice the Dhamma. That's the important thing. There's no absolute reason why anyone, human, man or woman, can't practice the Dhamma, purify their mind of delusion, attachment, and so on. That's a good starting point in terms of the externals of how to improve the situation for monastics and lay people, and particularly for women, what we nowadays we call women's rights or the role of women. There's always more to do to improve, for sure. And that's part of our Dhamma practice. And I'm sure the Buddha, if he was alive, he would be encouraging people to be kind, sensitive, helpful, fair, honest, all the useful good qualities. He'd be encouraging that in relations in society, the role of women, the role of all kinds of minorities, you know, everything, everyone. There's always more that we need to do. So I'm not sure I can give a very detailed answer at the moment on that one. I have to go back to the texts and check things.
Thank you, Luang Por. The second last question. Dear Luang Por, before each meditation session, should I determine that this session I will practice concentration and then I'll focus on the breath? In another session, I should determine to practice vipassana. Thus, I'll keep watching what is in my body or in my mind. So I will do one type of determination at each session, but not mixing them. Is that the correct way of doing it, Luang Por? Or should I select one type and follow it for a long time before practicing the other type?
It's a bit hard to give a specific answer here. It could be correct to do it that way, if it works for you. What I usually practiced as a layperson and in former years is like, I would always aim, first of all, just to bring up the mindfulness and calm my mind so that I'm not bothered by the 5 hindrances. But to overcome the 5 hindrances, sometimes the techniques of vipassana help. So to contemplate impermanence, you're plagued by a certain kind of anxiety or worry, or you keep thinking about something and it just means you can't focus on the breath, for example. Sometimes just contemplate impermanence can help. Or bring up the perception of not self, or contemplate the body. Sometimes you have to be ready to adjust, I've found. Adjust your approach. It can't always be exactly the same all the time. But generally, I would always be aiming, first of all, to go beyond the hindrances, to work to bring my mind to be one-pointed and unified on the breath. Had always been my usual goal, to do that. And when I'm feeling more calm, more one-pointed, then to contemplate the impermanence of the five khandhas and feelings and the body. But how quick or how slow or how much, there's a variation there. So like if you meditate for 1 hour, I've never really been in for this 10-minute meditation myself. I usually meditate for an hour or two. But if you meditate, say, for an hour, maybe the first half an hour, calming the mind with the breath, the second half of that 1 hour, practicing what you might call vipassana, contemplating the body, contemplating impermanence. But if you do it a lot, regularly, after a while, maybe you're practicing vipassana from the moment that you start doing your formal meditation. But if you do it a lot, you do sitting, you do walking, then you're getting into the mode all the time. And of course, when you're not meditating formally, you still practice vipassana, you're still contemplating the arising and ceasing of moods and feelings and thoughts. So it really depends on your level of experience, I think. If you're a beginner, you may determine to do a set amount of time on samatha or mindfulness of breathing or whatever samatha object you're using. And then you do a set amount of time on vipassana. So you're doing it in a more structured, formal way because you're new. When you become more experienced, you trust yourself more, you're more aware of your own mind, maybe there can be more, it can be a looser kind of framework to your meditation. So in the beginning I would, you could say half-half is one thing to try. However long you sit. Say you sit for 20 minutes. You can do 10 minutes just with the breath, then 10 minutes of vipassana. Try it. See what works for you.
Thank you, Luang Por. The final question. Firstly, this person wishes Luang Por would get well soon. The question is, I know that acupuncture, which balances the Qi energy, helps to achieve stillness easily. And this person being able to see nimittas during meditation. So her question is, should I go for acupuncture or should I stop? I initially went for acupuncture to help with chronic aches.
I think I didn't understand the question. Is there a clash between acupuncture and meditation here?
Yeah, I don't quite understand the question too, but I think what the person is asking is, well, firstly, the person is saying that when she undergoes acupuncture, she achieves some form of a stillness. And then during meditation, she experiences nimitta. And she's wondering whether she should continue accepting acupuncture to achieve stillness.
Well, if the acupuncture is helping with the physical condition, continue, yeah. I do acupuncture sometimes, no problem. If it helps you, do it. As far as meditation goes, they can be complementary, because if you become more aware of your mind, you do more meditation, you become more aware of the breath energy flowing around the body, and it's kind of complementary to acupuncture, actually. So I don't see a problem doing both. Continue with the acupuncture, continue with the meditation. As far as nimittas go, you say nimittas arise. Well, it depends what nimittas. There's so many different kinds. One thing that all nimittas have in common is that they're usually visions, but we also get sound nimittas, taste, smell, touch. But if it's a visual one thing they all have in common is they arise, they pass away. So if you're ever worried about a nimitta, you see a visual image of a person or a ghost or a deva or whatever, that image will come, it'll rise up into your consciousness for a while, and then it'll pass away. It's not there all the time, 24/7. So that use that truth to your advantage. You don't never have to be really scared of an nimitta because it's just a visual image. It can be confronting, it can be unusual, but it won't last. You've got that on your side, so it doesn't have to bother you too much. Some nimittas, visual images, seem very helpful. So some may arise as a result of your vipassana meditation. You have an insight. Maybe you see a part of the body. You have a really kind of detached awareness, seeing a part of the body with no sense of self there. Or you see your body as a corpse sometimes. But there are other kinds of nimittas people see. Sometimes they see a dead relative, or they see a deva, or they see something very beautiful, or something very, very ugly. Or some nimittas are just seemingly very random, and it's like, why am I seeing these images popping into my head? Maybe they're just memories, maybe it's imagination, or maybe it has some deeper meaning. But if you don't know the deeper meaning, it doesn't really matter, does it? What you can know is that they arise, they pass away. They're just visual images, that, like clouds coming across the sky. They're there and then they're gone. And that much you can know for sure. What is impermanent is not you, because it comes and it goes. It's not a self, it's not a person. So you can always use that reflection with nimittas. And be careful not to get too fascinated by nimittas, the desire to see things, know things, because that can become a bit distracting and confusing for your practice.
Sadhu Lampo, that completes the list of questions we have here on the chat box. Thank you.
Okay, we can take 15-minute break and then we'll be back for the final session.